I have a confession to make. I struggled all week to prepare for this intro or monologue for today's show. I struggled to find the right words to capture what happened all week in our social, economic, and political terrain in our beloved country, Nigeria. I struggled to find the quote and unquote funny in it, the humor, sarcasm, wit. I struggled to find that uncanny humor that is undoubtedly Nigerian, our trademark, the happiest people on earth, our gift of finding humor in the most dire situations possible. But nothing about the events of the last week has been funny. What it is disgraceful. Unending queues returned across filling stations nationwide. Queues of cars, motorcycles, tricycles, people, plastic containers, jerry cans, you name it. Everyone was outside in hopes to buy fuel at inflated prices due to fuel scarcity crisis that hit the nation more than a week ago. The irony of it is Nigeria is supposedly an oil-rich nation. And since the discovery of oil in the oil-rich South, and that's Bayelsa State, 68 years ago, the country has been unable to fix up its energy sector. We have the power and we can do it. We can be consistent, the same way we are consistent with our blackouts, corruption, and Afrobeat music. Oh, wait, scratch the last part of there about Afrobeats, because it's every day that your faves are either at each other's throat or even worse, disassociating themselves from the genre, saying they are not Afrobeats artists. But wait, let's leave those people first, please, and think about it, all right? In the year of 2024, a time of technological advancements like the world has never seen before. I'm talking AI, self-driving cars, space exploration, and space tourism. We still are grappling with fuel scarcity and queues for an oil-rich nation. I mean, make it make sense. Another thing that doesn't make sense, let's just put this thing on the table, is the minimum wage. And I know what you're about to say, and I'm sure you must have seen it by now. It's the essay to the president on media and publicity, and during a televised interview, by the way, when he was asked whether Nigerians are feeling an immediate impact of the numerous economic interventions of the president, and that's President Bola Tinubu's led administration, to alleviate their pains or hardship. He replied that Nigerians' spending power has increased over the course of the last year. Last month, I beg your pardon. Wait a minute, just give me a second. I think I'm being led by the Spirit. Hang on. Yeah, there's a message I have a message for my fellow members of the Brotherhood and Traveling Sister Trend of the Light-Skinned Nation. All my sisters and my brother, my light-skinned sisters and brother, please, let's not let our yellow blind us, okay, from seeing the truth right in front of us. Can everybody say yellow? Say yellow. Now, the national minimum wage at an approved 30,000 naira is less than 50% of the price of a bag of rice. Nigeria's staple food item. And secondly, citizens, just think about it. The rice, jollof rice, fried rice, we love rice. We cannot afford to pay it. A person on the minimum wage will most likely have to save 3 times their salaries just to afford it. And let's not get started on the inflation numbers and even the price of fuel at an inflated price. Okay, it's high. Now, while leaders of the trade unions and labor unions are demanding an increased minimum wage to a little over 600,000 naira, which is deserved, some workers are partying away. You know what I mean? I trust Nigerians to take any opportunity that they can to take a holiday or celebrate even on May Day. I mean, can everybody say yellow? They are dancing and jubilating as they should. But honestly, we should be crying, okay? We should be crying, Mayday, 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 especially when it comes to our preservation and our conservation of our environment, especially our beachfront, and not to speak of businesses, especially in the sector we still haven't been able to get right, and that is the tourism sector. Thousands are now out of jobs as demolition and sand filling of Landmark Beach has commenced, and this is only the first phase of the project, as the 700-kilometer Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway will run through Ogun, Ondo, Delta, Edo, Bayelsa, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom. What will be the environmental impact of this project on these states? And how are lives and businesses and livelihoods going to be affected? Was any of these even considered during the planning stages? Well, your guess is as good as mine. But one thing I can guarantee you is a fantastic start of your weekend on Here with yours. And that's me, yours truly, Judith Atibi, and the ever dapper Mazino Appeal. He got a new haircut, by the way. You want to check him out? Yeah, there we go. There he is. So get out of bed, Joe. Or are you on the queue? Come on, wake up, Joe. Get up, sleepyhead. Come join us for Breakfast Extra.
Good morning and welcome once again on Breakfast Extra. As we infuse your Saturdays with that warm weekend feeling, let's deliver a fresh serving of the headlines from today's dailies to kickstart your morning. So hey, get cozy, maybe you want to grab your own drink or whatever it is, and let's dive into the stories making front page news today. Judith, good morning to you once again.
Good morning, Mazino. How are you doing?
There, okay, if you want to do that. For a second there, I was expecting to hear, I have a dream. That was beautiful.
I beg,
Martin Luther Queen.
Oh, I love it. Did you like the infusion of Afrobeats?
That was good.
Everybody say yellow.
And we're going to be talking about that now, aren't we?
Oh, yes, we
Definitely.
are.
Well, for now, let's take the front pages, and we're going to be starting with the Daily Trust newspaper today. If you would join us, front and center for the Daily Trust, eminent northerners to Tinubu reject bid to site U.S. French bases in Nigeria. There are consequences, they say. Find out on page 4. And inside the unending rivalry between Wizkid and Davido, here it is again. Measles kill 42 in Adamawa. And lower, the cover page here, Zulum teachers welfare in Borno. 8,000 naira can't even pay our transport LEA teachers. And we urge government not to sack a single teacher, says the NLC. Be a little more patient, NUT appeals to aggrieved teachers. And to the side of the photo story, issues as parties brace up for Edo governorship elections. And no journalist incarcerated under Tinubu's government, say Minister on page 7. That's in commemoration of World Press Freedom Day, which was celebrated differently across the countries. I think inside of our strips, we'll get to see one very interesting take on it, I think, from Uganda. But
yes,
what
indeed.
other paper do we have?
We have Punch, the Saturday Punch. We're going to get started with the very first one that jumps at you. NNPC marketers trade blame as fuel as crisis deepens. You're going to find that story on page 4. Marketers exploiting situation to make money, says NNPCL. We can't supply what we don't have. IPMAN fires back. And on page 9 there, don't trade in crypto or PayPal. Others warn their customers. You can find that on page 7. Bottom there, a little bit of Afrobeat for you. How Wizkid sets social media ablaze with attacks on Davido and on Jazzy. And also, as you move away from that, Trigger Happy Cop throws pregnant wife, aged parents into mourning, killing breadwinner jostling for patrol. And you can find that on pages 22 and 23 of the front page of the Saturday Punch. Also at the bottom, Fidge reporter detained on IG's order spends third night in detention. And we just finished talking about World Press Day, and this story, this headline there is not one to write home about. Moving up there at the top there, how I was begged to be Obaseki's deputy, and that's on Schreiber there, and now impeached deputy of Edo state government. Away from that, Don Yokukui, overeating caused my excess weight. Okay, well.
It is newsworthy.
That's news. That's news.
Interesting. All right, now we still have other dailies. Let's do the Nation newspaper. And for the Nation newspaper, front and center, petrol scarcity, how 7 trapped vessels are prolonging crisis. Supply situation to improve next week, says marketers. Motorists pay 800 naira and above for a liter of PMS. I can testify to doing that full tank only just yesterday. Mobil, Shell, others get conditions for divesting 26 oil blocks, and anxiety over plots to violate court restraining Adeleke from Free King coronation, Ire King coronation. Tension as monarch miners spoil for war in Ogun State. Royal father's reign of curses threaten miners with charms, and he has no power to demand our operation license, says the miners. At the very top for the Nation newspaper, NERC unbundles TCN, sets up independent system operator. Very interesting story, that. And finally, Tinubu to unveil 3 critical gas infrastructure projects. I'm sure we'll touch on one or more of these as the day progresses. What other ones do we have?
We move now to The Guardian on Saturday. The very first headlines there. Federal government pledges to provide unfettered access to journalists, World Press Freedom Day, and that's on page 28 of The Guardian newspaper. At the very top there, you're going to see gas explosions, monster resisting to be tamed, and that's on the Saturday special, page 24 and 25. And when you move on now from that there, at the very top there, Guardian Women, page 13, building professional relationships, help women navigate challenges and career. At the very bottom there, contempt. A court grants EFCC motion for stay of proceedings. Find that story on page 28. EFCC insists on prosecuting Matawale over alleged 70 billion naira fraud. That's also on page 28. Afrima hosting rights. Africa Union rights, Nigeria, South Africa. You can find that story on page 12. At the top there, wage increase. Your government is deceitful. Workers tell Tinubu, and that's on page 2. And at the very bottom there, federal government set to increase gas supply to domestic market with 3 projects ready for commissioning. And that's from the presidency. You can find that story on the page 3 of The Guardian on Saturday.
And we move quickly now to The Matrix, which might be our last Nigerian paper before we move to the African scene here. Front center here, Press Freedom Day calls for journalists' safety protection resound. SERAP NGE call for review of Cybercrime Act, others repressive law and other repressive laws. Say Tinubu governors, FCT ministers must now genuinely uphold press freedom, and FG government highlights importance of press freedom. Well, thank you very much. Yahya Bello, however, court halts contempt charge against EFCC boss. And that story continues. We're now in season 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Grab your copies now.
Do you love the show so far?
I'm loving it.
Yeah, I know you do.
Emefiele Gate, EFCC files additional evidence as court adjourns trial till May 9, and fresh trouble for Matawale as protesters storm EFCC HQ, demand his probe reopening. And at the top for The Matrix, IOC's proposed divestment of 26 oil blocks of 8.21 million barrels reserved to local companies, yeah. And also, I think that's as much as we can take for The Matrix newspaper.
Oh,
do we
yes,
have
indeed.
our favorite Cameroonian paper?
We move to Cameroon now. This one here is from The Guardian Post, and it's literally all about sports. By the way, let's get started. The Premier League, Onana shortlisted for Save of the Month award, and that's on page 2. You move on to page 3 there. You see that this headline jumps at you at page 3. Bryce meets Stonewall in tour of Europe. Hugo Akitike brutally rejects Cameroon. Balaba still undecided whether to play for Lions or not. Search for fresh talent, and that's on page 3 of The Guardian Post. And also Olympics qualifier, NBA champion Sakiam named in Cameroon's squad there. And then for the Premier League, a 10-year-old Cameroonian Tian Chu joins Fulham, and that's on page 8. And finally there on page 18, another championship, former champions Vuvo UMS relegated. That's for Cameroon there for their sports front page. Well, that's all of the front pages we can take on your Saturday edition of the Breakfast Extra. We hope you stay for the rest of the Breakfast Extra, because coming up next is the big story. Stay with us. For our first big story, let's delve into the escalating tensions within Nigeria's petroleum industry. The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, issued a grave warning threatening to disrupt the supply of premium motor spirit, PMS, commonly known as petrol. And their grievances: alleged non-payment of a staggering 200 billion naira in bridging claims by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, and that's NMDPRA.
Now, the issue has exacerbated the already critical nationwide scarcity of petrol, leading to unending queues at fueling stations across the country, soaring prices as well at the pumps and on the black market. Now, to shed light on this pressing matter, we're joined by Ukadike Chinedu IPMAN, the first Deputy President of the TUC. You are welcome, sir. Good morning. Good to have you here. Okay, well, unfortunately, we are still trying to establish connection with him. We'll bring him back to you here. But the situation still persists here in Nigeria regarding the situation of fuel and fuel scarcity. Very many factors that are adding up to this. One regarding bridging claims. Now, to explain what bridging claims are, these are monies that are owed to marketers that have already expended them on transporting their products from the depots over to cities and towns. These monies actually stopped being paid in September of last year when the fuel subsidy was taken out of, you understand what I mean. Now, since then, they have complained that they have not been paid these monies. They've expended their own monies to try and transport the products to towns or cities from the depots, and that's the money that they're actually asking for. I think it's gone up to 200 million, if I'm not mistaken. And these monies they need because they say it's crippling their business, and they don't know what to do after that.
And they have a rightful claim to it, because when you think about it in and of itself, it must be difficult doing business in this time, you know, and especially in a commodity such as fuel energy, right, where subsidies have now been removed. There's a scarcity. There's also, they have to grapple with FX when it comes to dollar, the exchange rates. There's a lot that they have to grapple with when it comes to that. And being able to transport and be able to still do business in a climate as ours, where the ease of doing business is a phantom. You know what I mean?
Yes,
it must be tough. And then, the bigger question is, how has our federal government been able to let the amount rise so high to the point of 200 million naira? And it takes me back again, another sector, another industry, and this time the aviation sector, where IATA, the International Association of Travel Airlines, were saying that Nigeria was owing them, the amount was in the hundreds of millions of dollars, not even naira this time, you know. And this was in 2022 during the former minister, that's Hadi Sirika. And there was a lot of back and forth. There were also, you know, calls for strike, calls for mediation. And they said the same thing over and over again. Why do we have to wait till it gets to such a huge amount before something can be done?
Let me correct that amount. I said 200 million, 200 billion, just to give you a real, the real idea of how much this money is. We're still trying to establish connection with Mr. Ukadike Chinedu of IPMAN. But we're definitely going to keep trying to make sure that because we have some very interesting questions. Exactly how have marketers continued to make their transport of these products to towns, and what the negotiations between them and government is so far.
Right.
Very many questions to answer there. Plus,
and then even the conditions they're able to do that as well, because when you think about the road networks in and of itself and maintenance and everything else that goes into it, it takes time. It takes time. When we see the queues getting into the port, and that's the Papa port to begin with, and coming out of the port, we see how they drive out, the conditions of the roads, trying to get to the far-flung,
so now when you factor in how much I bought fuel yesterday, and I'm talking about 800 naira for a liter. This was like hunting all the way up until nighttime. It's like a new WhatsApp group. Everybody just, hey, have you found fuel? Where is it? Now, when you consider how much these marketers are eventually selling their products, you begin to at least maybe sympathize with them. I'm not too sure if everybody agrees with me. I'm sure I'm going to get into trouble with that, because very many people still complain about the at least 190 naira increase when you come to the total cost.
Right.
So, while we're still trying to establish a connection with Mr. Ukadike, we're going to go on a short break, try and make sure that we have him on. And when we get back, we'll be discussing this issue regarding IPMAN and also bridging claims. We'll be back. Now, organized labor on Tuesday urged the government at various levels in the country to ensure that the welfare of workers is paramount in whatever policy decisions they are taking. Now, that's not all. Speaking at the pre-May Day lecture in Abuja as part of activities to mark the 2024 International Workers' Day celebrations scheduled for Wednesday, the president of the TUC, the trade union of Nigeria, Comrade Festus Osifo, said the welfare and interests of the people should be considered first in driving any government policy.
The TUC president, represented by the deputy president of the center, Comrade Etim Okon, said the theme of the 2024 May Day celebration, Workers First, is very significant because there's a need to put the people first and to put the workers first in a very government policy, in every government policy. Now, on Wednesday, beyond the May Day speeches, the march past and the agitations that usually marks the Workers' Day celebration, many workers in Nigeria took time out to unwind, all right? And we're going to bring you a report later on in the course of the program from our correspondent in Abuja, Marvelous Obomanu, who caught up with the many expressions of workers, celebrations. He joined as they celebrated, and he also joined them to discuss prioritizing the needs and welfare of Nigerian workers, along with Mr. Tommy Etim Okon, the Deputy President, Trade Union Congress. First Deputy President, Trade Union Congress, and he joins us live. Mr. Etim, thank you so much for coming on, and a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Etim, please.
All right, Doctor. Good to have you on the show. So first off, sir, let's get from you what your general opinion was regarding the Workers' Day celebration and workers across Nigeria. What was the mood exactly like, if you were going to put it in your own description?
Well, the mood was in two folds. One, a very relatively not pleasant because of the socioeconomic challenges, and of course, in the other way, we are happy to be alive to witness the day. Is a day set aside to review and also to celebrate the effort of the workers. When you look back to what you've been able to achieve with a very harsh socio-economic environment, it's worth celebrating.
Well, Dr. Okon, let's talk about the theme for this year's Workers' Day celebration, which is Workers First, right? The celebrations, what specific initiatives or policies do you believe are crucial for improving the working conditions and overall welfare of Nigerian workers?
If you look at the ILO, when we talk about the job creations, we talk about the workers' rights, social protection, and we talk about collective bargaining and social dialogue in terms of the welfare in the world of work. It's also boiled down to the fact that in every government policy, workers must be considered at the center of it. Because, no matter the technology you have, you find out that labor must play a critical role. Even with artificial intelligence, you need human effort to activate it. So for us, we believe very much that people should be put first, the workers should be considered first, and the workers should be involved in every policy of government, because you talk about the economic prosperity, you cannot address it without human effort. So that is why we play very central. And to us, we are very confident that once we are involved, the tendency is that we put in our best to ensure that things work the way it's supposed to work. Okay. Because we have the skill, we understand the dynamics, and our people are everywhere. Okay, you cannot be the goods that laid a golden egg without being involved in the process of being the omelets.
All right, Dr. Okon. So, Doctor, there were very many speeches across the country at every celebration in every state. Some from the government, some from the trade union, some from the labor union. But there were also ultimatums given by the NLC and the TUC when it comes to regarding the minimum wage decision. Effectively, after that one, there was an increase in civil servant salaries. But then there was also another ultimatum given for the reversal of hike in electricity tariffs. Now, 7 days. What happens after 7 days if the tariffs remain the same?
Well, the issue that affects the minimum wage, the organized labor has given till 31st of May. It is for government to expedite action, because if you look at the committee was set up in February, and this is May, so it's expected that by now we will have been rounded up. But be that as it may, since it is still work in progress, we believe that government can expedite action for us to have a meaningful national a minimum wage, because of the socioeconomic challenges. The masses are suffering, the workers are suffering, and the economy is not friendly. You can see what is happening today. After the removal of the fuel subsidy, we are still experiencing a lot of queues in the filling stations, which is supposed not to be so. Because we believe that with the removal of the fuel subsidy, there will be an interplay of the market forces, for us to have each free distribution of fuel. But now the reverse is the case. And again, you look at government waking up to increase the electricity tariff from 66 naira per kilowatt to 225 naira per kilowatts, almost 300% increase. And this was done with impunity against the provision of the Act, because the Act has made provision that there should be stakeholders in engagement, but that was not done. So policies were not meant to impoverish the masses, rather it was to see how we can get a relief for the masses and also get Nigerian economy out of the woods.
Dr.
So
Okon,
that is why the ultimatum becomes very necessary.
Dr. Okon, I have a last question for you, but before that, I understand that our correspondent, Marvelous Obomanu, has joined us live now. He was in Abuja covering all of the events for the May Day celebration. Marvelous, are you there? Marvelous, good morning to you. I will try to fix your audio, but Dr. Okon, let me come to you back, right? You just talked about the fuel scarcity and also the fuel subsidy removal. Now, with current economic challenges that Nigerians are facing, especially Nigerian workers, what strategies do you propose that the government projects to protect the interests of workers beyond just wages, beyond the increment of salaries to over 600,000 naira?
Well, government is fond of embarking on policy without involving the organized labor. Like the case of the removal of fuel subsidy, we just had Mr. President made an announcement, and that was it. And the marketers cash in, and they impoverish the entire Nigerian masses. So if government want to work on policies that will be all-inclusive from the conception to to implementation and even evaluation, the labor has to be involved, because there is no policy that does not affect the worker directly. So if we are not involved in the policy formulation and implementation or work policy making processes, it therefore means that you have denied your voice to be heard, and the force of the masses can only be heard through the organized labor. And again, government need to think on the issue of provision of the CNG buses. which they agreed. Today, with the removal of the fuel subsidy, everything is skyrocket. Transportation, the cost of food items in the market, they're all skyrocket. And this is getting to 1 year. The CNG buses is nowhere to be found in the street, either in Abuja, Lagos, or any other states. But what we are experiencing is that some state governors are providing vehicles, and buses for workers or some kind of relief order. That's supposed not to be the case. Because you now look at, when you look at the labor, the issue of housing and the mortgage with the PPP arrangement, it has failed. And there's what government is coming up now with the Renew Hope housing. We want to see the workability of it, because the masses are suffering with the high cost of building material. In all things, you look at it as if all policies are meant to cage the poor. Whereas it's supposed not to be so. So this is where our concern lies. And who are those managing you can see the economic team, the entire economic team, without involvement of the labor. You can see the committee set up to implement Orasoya's report without involving labor. How can you shave our head in absence?
Okay, Dr. Okon.
Nowhere the workers' voice are heard.
Okay, Dr. Okon, we're going to put you on hold for just a minute so that we can reach out to Marvelous Obomanu in Abuja. Marvelous, good morning. Do we have you now? Unfortunately, I think we're still having problems with Marvelous. But Mr. Okon, back to you. I initially asked a question regarding the ultimatum and what would happen after. But I'm going to follow that up by asking, now, what other kinds of engagements does the TUC or NLC have in place just in case these ultimatums elapse and there's nothing done? Is a strike action going to be the next resort? If it is, noting that Nigerians are going through so much currently, wouldn't that add to the amount of hardships that they're going through if they're unable to work and make money?
And even an economic standstill as well.
Exactly. So what other
we should not be
avenues?
focusing only on the labor. I think government need to be talked to. And the best way to do, we have applied all our strategy, which is strategic engagement, social dialogue, in line with the ILO principle, when it comes to decent work. And you see, government looks the other way. Because when we now said after the ultimatum, what happened, when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. But I think government need to walk the talk. Government need to live up to expectation, because this is not something that takes government unaware. If a committee is set up and there's a timeline, I think the committee need to work towards, attaining to the timeline. These are the issues. Then if strike is the language government want to hear, so be it. But I want to believe that we will not get there.
Okay, so
because
now
it will be an ill-wind that will do anybody no good.
If it is a strike action that is needed, what are the considerations to the workers themselves with the amount of suffering that's currently on ground right now? A strike necessarily is not to their advantage, because they wouldn't be able to work and they wouldn't be able to make money. So is that a considerate approach to the situation is what I'm asking?
Well, let me also tell you that strike is a right. It's a fundamental human right, because we have the right to withdraw. If government don't want to listen to the cry of the organized labor and the masses, and don't forget, even with the 35,000 naira wage award, it was when we issued ultimatum that government started working on it. And as I speak, they have only implemented to February this year. We have March, we have April, and this is May. I think government need to walk the talk. We are tired of hearing government say they want to do this. I'll just give you an instances of the CNG buses that we have not seen in the street. Don't you know that will have solved at least 50% of transport problem we are facing now.
Very true, sir.
Today you can only get fuel through black market. Is it, for how long can we live there? We live
sir,
it in the
Dr.
military
Okon, we
era,
wish we could
we are
let you
living
go
it again
on.
in civilian era.
We wish we could let you go on, but we have just very limited time for this hour. But thank you very much, sir, for joining us. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And that was Dr. Okon. He is the first deputy president of TUC, and he joins us live to talk about the May Day celebrations and everything that the TUC and the Labour Congress is demanding. We're going to a short break. When we come back on the other side, we bring you another big story. Stay with us. For our first, or rather for our second big story, let's delve into the escalating tensions within the energy sector, and that's Nigeria's petroleum industry. The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, has issued a grave warning threatening to disrupt the supply of premium motor spirits, PMS, commonly known as petrol. Now, their grievances alleged non-payment of a staggering 200 billion naira in breaching claims by the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, and that's NMDPRA.
Now, the issue has escalated and is already quite critical currently. It's leading to unending queues, and of course, everybody is experiencing that one as we speak. And also, there are no petrol at the pumps in some places, and also black market rates are really high. To shed light on this pressing matter, we're joined by Ukadike Chinedu, the IPMAN's PRO. Good morning, sir. Good to have you here, sir.
Yeah, good morning, and good morning to Nigerians.
Thank you.
Good morning. Let's get started. I would like for you to, provide some context regarding the current situation surrounding the non-payment of bridging claims by the NMDPRA and its impact on, IPMAN members.
Yeah, the non-payment of these bridging claims has lingered. You also remember that when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took over government, he removed oil subsidy, and also because of the PIA bill, the issue of Petroleum Equalization Fund, the PEF, which is started to be able to regularize and equalize petroleum products nationwide to be sold uniformly, was disbanded. And that agency was merged with NNPPR because of the ongoing reorganization in the oil and gas industry in line with the PIA bill. Now, before then, marketers have been owned millions of naira based on some of their bridging claims because petroleum products is being equalized from the northern part of the country to the southern part of the country, from the southern part of the country to the western part of the country, depending on where you're loading your products from. So thereafter, the PEF has been removed. Product can be sold at anywhere, and cost of transportation is upon the marketers. So marketers who have used their money and money they borrowed from banks to be able to ensure that petroleum product is moved from one point to the other, we are not being paid. And that money has been lingering for a very long period of time. And we have used all available means to be able to talk to the federal government, especially the agency that is saddled with this responsibility of reconciling the bridging claims with marketers, which is NNDPR, to be able to pay these funds. Although they are doing their best, but the best was not good enough because a lot of money is being stacked with NNDPR and NPC. So that was why most of our chairmen, having our mandate as a national body to issue that press statement to enable government hastening up, because some of these issues was also released during the meeting we had with the minister, who also ordered that the NMDPR authority should look into this and make sure that money was being paid. But reliably, the authority also informed me that they have paid over 10 billion naira has been released, and within this period of time, marketers will start receiving their bridging claims. And as I'm confirming to you now, some marketers have started receiving their bridging claims, but that is not good enough. So our further inquiry shows that some of this money is not with NNDPRA. The NNDPRA is the paying authority, while NNPC and some major marketers and tap pump owners are also holding this money. So they are also trying to reconcile with them and get some of this money so that they can be able to pay marketers. So that is the red tapeism and bureaucratic knots that have been holding this money, and this money have run into millions
Yes, indeed.
of
Mr. Ukadike,
naira, and our marketers are suffering.
so, Mr. Ukadike, now this money seemed to be tied into the stoppage of the subsidy payment. Exactly how is that? How does that work? Why is it that when subsidy was halted, that was exactly when these monies started being owed to the NMDPRA? And what's the effect on the members of the NMDPRA?
No, this money was owned before the creation of NNDPRA, the emergence of NNDPRA as a body. It was being owned to marketers. And it's not because of scarcity. The scarcity does not have anything to do with it. This has been a long meeting that has been going on. Coincidentally, we all agreed and we'll have a date that this meeting should be held within this period of time. Because all the chairmen are coming from the whole 21 depots of IPMAN nationwide. And there was the time they stipulated, and they are all agreed that they should make their stand known, because marketers who owns this money have run out of business. Some of them have been died at the cost of trying to get this money being paid to them.
We're pressed for time, Ukadike, but I would like to ask you, right, and I want to get this right. In light of the escalating tensions and threats of supply disruption, what measures is IPMAN prepared to take if your demands are not met?
Okay, now, because we have also issued an ultimatum that if this money is not being paid within some few period of time, we'll shut down our filling stations, which is our last resort. IPMAN, we don't normally go on strike. We don't normally withdraw our services. We have to consider it necessary, because we know that some of our actions, the reflex effect on the public is very, very, very horrendous. Let me use that word. So we are very, very careful, because we know that the domestic movement and ensures almost everything revolves in oil and gas, petrol from filling stations. So we don't want to suffer anybody, because our service are almost service oriented. So we don't want to suffer anybody. That was why we are now resorting to this means to allow government to intervene quickly before we embark on any strike. And you know, whatever strike IPMAN embarks, it shakes the nation and it dwindles the economy. So we don't want to partake in such a thing. We want federal government to, as quickly as possible, pay marketers their bridging claims.
Now, once again, you are the second person this morning who has said that there will be a strike if the demands are not met by the organization. And we always keep asking if there are other alternatives to strike. If Nigerians are the ones who are actually suffering, paying more at petrol stations, and of course that's if they are able to find it, wouldn't they be the same people who would be suffering once there's a strike enacted again? If this grouse is with the government, why not face the government with alternatives to strikes instead of include the people and give them more suffering?
Well, sometimes we don't control the law. Also, we don't control the court processes. Sometimes when you institute cases against federal government, you suffer a lot of adjournments, and by the time you finish to Supreme Court, your descendants will inherit the case. So when we look at that option is not our best. We wanted an option that can be able to law the federal government. First of all, we'll start lobbying. First of all, we'll start communicating with the authorities. We have written several letters. We have written letters of even cost visits and business meetings to be able to. We have also met the minister. We have done a lot of things. We have moved to be able to ensure that we don't resort to strike action or withdrawal service is the least independent marketers will embark on, because we
okay.
know the adverse effects of our actions, and we'll try as much as possible to avoid it.
If strike is the last resort, let's remove strike from the equation, or the ultimatum for strike. What is the resolution you envision, to end this crisis? What would it look like?
Well, it's payment. If the federal government pays us, why would we go on strike? We won't go on strike. But if federal government, we withdraw our services. We don't even go on strike. We normally do what we do is
what if
withdraw
it's
our
a part
services.
payments type of resolution? What if they say let's pay a little now and a little later, or let's prorate the payments through the course of a stipulated
8
time?
months, 18 months.
Would that be a good
the entirety
alternative?
of this administration?
I don't understand. Can you come back with it?
What I asked was, what if the government comes to a decision or suggestion whereby it's asking IPMAN, let's pay these monies over a duration of time. Let's release it to you in tranches. Would that be a good solution?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We'll take that, definitely. Although the money has stayed a very long period of it. But once there is hope, once government says, oh, that's a payment plan, because they are paying this money in tranches. Now they say they have they're paying around 10 billion naira. We're also happy. Those who were able to reconcile within this period of time and are being paid, we're also happy to be able to continue in their businesses. Because most of us borrow this money from banks. And once we borrow this money from banks, the banks are building interest. And by the time this money will come back, you will find out you have nothing. You just worked for only the banks. So that is a problem, because before, we normally buy petroleum products around 8.1 million naira. Now we are buying petroleum products at something million, 40 million, 50 million naira. So it's a huge investment.
All right,
and marketers need their funds to be able to ensure that they continue in business. Otherwise, we'll close down.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okadike Chinedu, for joining us.
You for coming on.
Shed some light on the situation between IPMAN and the government, and hopefully we reach a good solution on this one. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And now we go on a short break, but after the break will be the news at 9, and we have Dakwo on standby. Stay with us and we're in.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. Let's begin the news at this hour in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will commission 3 critical gas infrastructure projects being undertaken by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and partner. This was disclosed in a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Nganani. It said the projects support government's efforts to grow value from the nation's gas assets while eliminating gas flaring. The project lined up for commissioning include the AHL Gas Processing Plant 2. Away from that to the judiciary, where we understand that the Court of Appeal has set aside the Lokoja High Court order against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and its chairman, Ola Olukoyede, in an attempt case filed by the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. The Court of Appeal, presided over by Justice Joseph Oke Oyewole, granted the EFCC's motion for a stay of execution and proceedings in the contempt case pending before the Kogi State High Court. The court held that the motion ex parte had merit and adjourned the hearing of the motion on notice to May 20th, 2024. In the meantime, the Anti-Graft Commission has assured the public that it will continue with the alleged 70 billion naira corruption case against the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, during his tenure as the governor of Zamfara State from 2019 to 2023. The acting director of public affairs of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Wilson Uwajeren, has said this while addressing protesters under the aegis of the APC Akita Forum, who were at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja on Friday to demand the reopening of the pending case. Let's move to security matters, where we understand that suspected bandits have attacked Maraban Agayero, where they abducted the village heads of Kangagi and Kinsaya villages and killed 8 villagers in Benin Gwari local government area of Kaduna State. We also understand that the attackers invaded the area around 8 a.m. local time on Thursday, during which they also abducted 4 farmers who were on their farms. According to sources in the area, 6 women were abducted in one of the villages. It was also gathered that 2 village heads were on their way from the Kagangi to Benin Gwari, where they were abducted. Now, the 8 villagers were killed as they tried to rescue the captives. Staying in northern Nigeria, Sokoto State Police Command has confirmed the arrest of some of its officers allegedly involved in the kidnapping of minors in the state. ASP Mohammed Rufai, the command's spokesperson, confirmed the arrest of ASP Kulu and an individual named Elizabeth. Investigations have begun regarding the reported kidnapping of 5 minors. Earlier, the ASP and Elizabeth were detained by the FCT Police Command for allegedly abducting 5 children, including a baby girl less than 2 weeks old. Let's also tell you that the Federal High Court sitting in Warri, Delta State, has heard the 3 suits filed by the people of Okwama community in Ewu, Orobo Kingdom, that's Hugele South local government area of the state, against the federal government, the Nigerian Army, the Delta State government, and the State Police Command over the killing of 17 Army officers in the Okwama community by yet-to-be-identified persons and wanton destruction of property. Now, News Central's Austin Adzu completes the story.
The sad incidents of March 14, where 17 soldiers were ambushed and killed at the riverbank of Okwama community, Delta State, was triggered by military reprisal attacks that raced down the community. Declaration of the King of Ewu and others wanted, bringing pain and agony to the people of Okwama community. The people of Okwama community have now filed damage claims of 100 billion naira against the Nigerian Army at the Federal High Court in Warri. The 3 cases are seeking, among others, the enforcement of fundamental rights to life, personal liability, dignity of human persons, right to acquire and own immovable property, and right to presumption of innocence as guaranteed in the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended 2023. Among the respondents in the cases are the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Federal Government, Attorney General of the Federation, Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, Nigeria Army, Governor of Delta State, Commissioner of Police, Delta State Command, Attorney General of Delta State, and Commander, 181 Amphibious Battalion, Nigeria Army, Agbo, Delta State. Professor Joseph Abugu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who led a team of lawyers for the applicants in the suit, told the court that the Nigeria Army and other respondents have been duly served notice of the applications. The respondents and their legal representatives were, however, not in court. Speaking with journalists, Professor Abugu accused the Nigerian Army of invading and raising down Okwama community.
We do think that the actions of the military in invading Okwama community on a vengeance mission is unconstitutional. It's a breach of the fundamental rights of the indigenes and residents of Okwama community. And since the court is the last hope of the common man, the community has no army of its own and is powerless before the army. But before the courts, we expect to get justice, and that's why we're here.
Meanwhile, the presiding judge, Justice Sanin, has adjourned the hearing on the applications to June 4th, 2024. In Warri, Delta State, for News Central, Austin Azu.
No fewer than 7 persons have been reported dead after a fuel tanker fell and exploded along the Warri-Sapele Road in Delta State, South Nigeria. The fuel tanker fell and exploded on Friday morning in Ometang Junction along the dilapidated, ever-busy Warri-Sapele Road. It was gathered that a mother and child were among those who died when the fuel-laden tanker lost control and fell, spilling its content on the road before exploding. Houses and businesses were burnt as a result of the explosion. Meanwhile, the state governor, Sheriff Oborevori, has visited the scene of the incident. The incident is coming exactly a week after the tanker explosion in Rivers State that killed many, destroyed properties worth millions of naira.
This morning, around that kind 10 o'clock, so when the rain was fall, so we can't see say the head of the truck, he just put come out. As he just put come out, now the back of the rock, small time, now the fire just catch. As when the fire just catch, now the fuel called the pump, people come they try to run, and this woman went in the front, he called this motherfucker run. So now he can't come back again. Say make call carry picking. As he can't come back, say make carry picking. Now the fire just trap over there. Now so the fire just burn, destroy the house, destroy generator, destroy food. Both yonder, both that bar when they yonder, he destroyed them. Destroy that lorry with the so kill a person for there. That boy tried to run. Now the fire just meet her there, kill her there too.
Very, very sad incident. Commiserating with my colleague in Rivers, what happened a few days back. This is happening in my state. It's a big, very sad, very sad, very, very sad.
And that's a wrap on Breakfast Headlines at this time. Breakfast Extra continues after now. My name is Dakbo Adegboye.
Welcome back on Breakfast Extra. Now, given the mounting public criticism and widespread, wide-ranging controversies trailing the ongoing 700-kilometer Lagos Coastal Highway project, many have queried the many implications of the government's approach to the matter. Now, on its face value, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project, which has been in the works for over a decade now, is a laudable project. This is true. Designed to connect Lagos to Calabar and Cross River states through the coastal states of Ogun, Ondo, Delta, Edo, Bayelsa, Rivers, and also Akwa Ibom. The project unquestionably has a very high potential commercially and also in investment value.
However, concerns over the environmental impact of the project have been raised by environmentalists and concerned citizens. The construction of such a massive highway along the coast could lead to the disruption of ecosystems and habitat loss for wildlife and ocean life as well. Additionally, the project could have significant implications for tourism along the coast, which is a major economic driver for many of the coastal states. The construction of the highway could disrupt coastal landmarks or landscapes and pristine beaches, potentially deterring tourists, impacting local businesses that depend on tourism. And as such, while the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway projects holds promise for economic development, it is crucial that careful consideration is given to its environmental consequences and its potential impact on tourism in the region.
So, joining us today to discuss the environmental and economic impact, the true impact of such a mega project, are first off joining us online, Mr. Desmond Majekudumi. He is an environmental activist and also founder Lufasi Nature Park.
And also joining us online as well is Olanike Olugboji Daramola. She's the founding director, Women Initiative for Sustainable Environment. And in the studio as well is Mac Slade. He is the managing partner, Little Company Limited, and also co-founder of Jara Beach House Resort, and as well as Jollof by Jara. Welcome to the studio.
Good to have you here. Great.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this mega project and how it actually affects the environment, the economy. First off, your overall view of the project. Great idea, good idea, bad idea, good timing or not?
I think your intro summarized it very well. It's a very laudable project, as you say, been in the works for a long time. The new government have made it happen and made it happen very quickly. And naturally there are, as you say, primarily commercial benefits to this project in the future. And on the flip side, I guess it's the handling and the implementation of the project that's been sort of the challenge. I think the communication around the project has not been as good as it could be. And there's a lot of people with a lot of questions, a lot of stakeholders with a lot of personal and collective concern. And that's where there's been a lot of challenges, I think.
Let me come to you, Desmond, as well, and let's talk about it. One of the things Mark said in his response here was about how this has been done very quickly as well, and the impact of it. What do you make of this? Starting with you, Desmond, and then to yourself, Olanike. Desmond, are you
Well,
there?
you want me to? Okay, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah. Well, frankly, despite all the the issues, and there are some major issues, this project is actually undoubtedly divinely orchestrated, and I'll tell you why. The coastal area of Lagos and other parts of Nigeria is experiencing some of the most rapid erosion of any other coastal area in the world. You know, and we're talking of 120 meters in a year, 60 meters in 3 months, you know, massive amounts of coastal erosion, which we have been monitoring for a long time. And there was some intervention about 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and then it stopped. So having a coastal road by that location is going to bring attention to this, because to have a coastal highway, you need to have a coast. And if this erosion is not tackled very rapidly, you will have no coast. In fact, you'll be lucky to have even the Lekki Expressway. So in that regard, it can only be looked at as a divinely orchestrated move, primarily also because the very company that is doing the road are the same people who were able to put protection for Victoria Island, which Victoria Island would be in the ocean now if this particular organization had not done what they did to protect Victoria Island. I mean, I know there's a lot of issues, and one of the major issues is, you know, where is your environmental impact assessment? Why are you doing it so rapidly? But the reality is, if this road wasn't being done, the coastal erosion issue might have been ignored too long, even though in all fairness, and I'll end on this note, in all fairness, Lagos State have recently, just I think 3 months ago, said, yeah, they're going to do something. But it goes way beyond the capacity of Lagos State. This type of thing, coastal erosion, is a federal matter. In fact, it's an international matter.
All right,
and
now,
we could go down
Desmond.
internationally for it.
All right, Desmond. Now, I wanted to jump on something you said quickly, and I wanted to include both Olanike and Mark here in the studio. Now, you spoke about the fact that there is this erosion going on, but there's an even bigger mega project that has been going on for years that has needed sand feeling of a portion of the sea to make it happen. Now, Olanike, are there any, is what we're seeing as erosion, could this be a consequence of what's happening on the other end of the coast? Could it be the sand filling projects that have happened over the years that are causing the beach line to erode? And I'm asking this to you and to Mark here in the studio, because he's had that issue with his own beach line property. So first of all, Olanike, could this be a cause?
Yeah, I would want to say that it's definitely could be linked to, you know, the land filling, because water will always find its natural course. For example, if you look at what continues to happen around Lekki and some other parts of Lagos that was landfill, it continues to experience erosion, flooding, you know, over the years. So definitely, if this project, as laudable as it looks, is going to happen, the question is, it started in 2006, and so much would have transpired such that even if there was an environmental impact assessment that was done way back, things have changed. You know, for example, I've read about communities that were aware that this project was going to happen, and they stayed away, you know, from the roots, the original design, the original plan of the project. But now, you know, there are information around, you know, the alignment is not what it was, you know, when this was conceived originally. So with the land filling, of course, you know, it's going to lead to flooding. and I'm sure that what is being experienced around erosion that Maje Kodumi talked about, it definitely has linkages.
Okay, so I'm going to come to you now, Mark, in the studio here with us. I've been to your property and I've seen the effect of this erosion. Yeah. Do you think that this is a direct impact from the sand filling that has been going on for so many years?
So in short, yes. We engaged multiple different consultants and professionals, particularly last summer when we were having our major ocean surges. And the general vibe was absolutely from both ends of the coastline, in addition to global warming and other challenges, sea levels rising. But yes, absolutely, it's had a major impact.
Desmond, during your response, the one thing you mentioned was the environmental impact analysis that should have been done by the Ministry of Works and even the federal government in its entirety. And I want to get this right? Given that, what specific measures do you think should be put in place then if, say, the EIA was not done, which is the environmental impact assessment or analysis was not done? What then can be done to be put in place to mitigate the potential impact on ecosystems and wildlife along the coastal road, away now from erosion and the water finding its path?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I mean, definitely it's good to have so-called development, but we've seen that these developments can sometimes cause far more harm than good over the long term. Sometimes you don't even see it. In this case, we're talking of developing a road through a very, very intense mangrove area. And these mangrove areas are watershed areas. These mangrove areas, they allow flood water to seep across into streams and into rivulets and so on, which you don't even see during the dry season, the rainy season rivulets. And so the impact assessment assesses these places and insists that certain measures should be taken not to block these particular streams and rivulets. So you won't have the kind of flooding that could come. And this needs to be done. There's a reason why we ask for environmental impact assessment. It's not just, for fun. It's in order to protect the mangrove, which again, I said, it's a very, very important and essential area. However, as Mark said, the major cause of this is the global warming. And this is simple science. You heat a product, it expands. The oceans are receiving far more heat than they've ever received over hundreds, if not thousands of years. They're expanding. Ice is melting. When you melt that kind of ice, the water rises. And because of the heat, you have far more virulent windstorms, which is the major cause of the erosion. And while the sand filling could have a little bit of an effect or even considerable effect in Lagos, how about Ondo? How about going down the coast? We're having coastal erosion all the way down our coast. It is a major emergency. It's one of the major manifestations of the climate change crisis, which is now being classified by the United Nations as the biggest emergency humanity has ever faced. So we need to protect our coast at the same time as we're building the road so the road can do its good work of linking us together and making tourism a very, very exciting activity for all of us. I can't wait till I can drive all the way to Calabar in half a day. Fantastic. And I'll pass by Mark's beach on the way.
Mark, again, considering that he just talked about, water and, the climate change and all that is happening with climate change and water receding, right, and then moving in. There is one thing we're not putting into this, Mazino, and that is our torrential rains. When the rains fall, there is flooding. How do you manage with that?
Rains, the rainy season take up 1/3 of our year. So being a beach business, we have to mitigate that anyway. Our own business has a lot of covered areas and business doesn't stop. Our bigger challenge is coming from the ocean. So we can handle the rains where the vertical water is not as challenging for us as the side water that comes from the ocean. That's why we had to put in the prevention methods last year. We spent a lot of money in preventing our own beachfront erosion, the rains are just another challenge to
another challenge. And now that the beach is now being sand-filled, do you think that with the rains is going to push even more water?
It's very possible, yeah. The more land, it will guide the water down the coastline, and currently there isn't that protection or infrastructure along the coastline. we're not the only coast in the world, but we may be one of the few which aren't protected as well as we should be.
Olanike, I'm going to come back to you, but I want to ask Mark one final question from my side here. Regarding the impact on tourism, however, especially putting back the factor of the highway being constructed, the businesses that it has affected from this end of the coast, you can see that people have lost their jobs, even if compensations have been made. Sure. However, there must be development, whether we like it or not. The government must make facilities in place for us to have a better economy. What suggestions, as a business owner in the tourism sector, what suggestions do you think you or many others could have for a balance of either preserving our coastline and still having facilities that are worth having as a nation?
Yeah, so I think the first point is, I think there was an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone with this project. The ocean protection could have been perhaps mitigated with the coastal road, but it's being built hundreds of meters away from the coastline with no groins, no protection on the ocean, and as a result of that, that challenge still remains. Tourism-wise, we've obviously seen our friends at Landmark being terribly affected, and as you say, job losses. A lot of employees, thousands of staff have now gone without jobs. There needs to be a conversation piece, back to the communication, open dialogue with local and federal government about what is the bigger picture with this. Some tourism locations along the coastline are currently okay, but equally many are not. And as a result of that, how do we preserve tourism in the future? That needs to be the open dialogue.
Speaking of collaboration, Olanike, let me come to you for this one, right? You had an initiative that is that's women-driven and sustainability for the environment. And this next question, I want to direct it targeted at you. What role do you think that the government should play in ensuring that the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway is carried out in a environmentally responsible manner? I mean, if we want to talk about the EIA, we're going to be here for a very long time. But let's talk about how can they then, collaborate with local communities as well, an initiative like yourself that is women-centered and driven?
I know we don't want to talk about EIA, but we can't definitely run away from it, because the EIA is something that would actually incorporate an understanding of the social impact of the project. And one of the things I know that governments can do moving forward, like I think Mark mentioned something about the poor communication gap, around this project. I know listening to the community is going to be different, helping the community also understand the costs, the benefits of the project. I don't know to what extent the costs and benefits of the project have been put into consideration, but creating an enabling environment where the communities are carried along, interventions that will give a soft landing to these communities around. I know there are talks about compensation, but I don't know to what extent people will actually be compensated in a manner that will help them, regain their lives, because we're talking about disruption of livelihoods, loss of livelihoods, and then, an environment that people so much love and have been living in for so many years. There is need to carry these communities along, and for government to initiate interventions that will empower these communities enough to be able to, move around, move on with their lives. And I know I didn't talk about the effects of climate change when I was talking about the effects that the landfilling would have had, and leading to erosion and flooding. You can imagine also the impact already of climate change on the livelihoods of these communities, and then now a project that is going to displace them. So government needs to create an enabling environment where there is more community engagement to give the communities an understanding and also listen to what they want. I won't begin to suggest the kind of projects because there is what we call, community-owned initiatives where you actually carry out a needs assessment and understand how these communities, will be carried along and what they actually need. So I need, the government really needs to engage with the community to understand what would really work for them as these projects are being implemented.
Do we have any samples or examples from other countries where these initiatives that have worked with communities have worked before? Maybe countries with highways themselves constructed without significantly negatively impacting the environment or tourism in itself?
This question is directed to all three of our guests.
Please go ahead first.
But Desmond, please go ahead first.
Okay, yeah, well, they have been. I mean, there was one, ironically, that they were doing, trying to do in Calabar that would have cut across a very precious rainforest, and there was a lot of activism, and eventually it was stopped because it wasn't justifiable. The services that road would have done to go to the port there could easily have been carried out by a railway line. And again, sometimes what we look at as modernization, at the end of the day, as I said earlier, it does cause more harm than good. It just depends, it depends on, how strong the democratic system is. And if the voice of the people is really being adhered to, then these things will be done. And that's what we're hoping is the case now in Nigeria, because we really, really need to explain the job description to the people who are running the place. They're civil servants, which from my understanding of the English language, it means they are serving the civilians, and if you're going to serve people, then you've got to listen to who you're serving. And so we're hoping that this is now what's going to happen, because the reality is that you get repercussions for every action. And if the people who are in charge and are supposed to be serving the people are not serving the people effectively, or serving them in a way that will have a negative impact, they also will get that negative impact. God is not mocked, you reap what you sow. So let's have far more interaction with people like Olamide's organization, and also encourage people like Mark with the wonderful thing that he's doing with tourism. And also you guys, this wonderful media organization that's bringing the truth out. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Mark, you've been around the world and you've actually taken sample from what you've seen to put up your business. Sure. Have you seen samples across the world that have put in place these collaborations
or projects?
Yeah, so in terms of reference points, the Netherlands are very well known for their oceanfront protection, but also turning it into a tourism opportunity as well. So I know they kind of reclaim on a regular, almost annual basis their beachfront, but then they have it and they're protected and the communities are fine. India is another good example. Maravanthe Beach Road is a great example of a beach road where you're combining a coastal highway and oceanfront protection. So there's many reference points around.
Along with that, what's the amount that is added to the country's GDP when it comes to tourism, even after expending so much on these projects?
Sure, that I can't answer, but I can tell you that everyone needs tourism. Without it, life's a lot less exciting.
Well, Annika, and lastly, finally, to you, let me come to you and ask about, just the impact of this. If this, the projects, similar coastal highways done globally, without any significant impacts in the environment and tourism, for example, but more specifically on tourism, if we can get it right, what are your hopes for in terms of tourism and women, especially women in business?
Yeah, I'm sure. I know that our big boss, Mark Jekudume, had talked about the difference this will make for Nigeria, for everyone. He even mentioned how nice it will be, to travel all the way. I'm sure that if the government actually gets it right, because there are countries that have gotten it right. Mark gave an example of Netherlands. If we could study, how they got it right and bring this back home, considering our own peculiar peculiar situation, I'm sure that it's really going to make a difference. No one is actually condemning this project outrightly, but what everyone is saying is that implement this, execute this in a manner that it works for everyone. So I'm sure that for women, there are a lot of ways, that women can be engaged, because for our organization, what we're all about is putting women at the front lines of driving, solutions to environmental problems and environmental challenges. So looking at implementing, projects that will engage women, for example, the issue of energy, access to clean cooking energy is a big deal for women. And, when you're talking about access to cooking energy in a country that still has over 60% of households still relying on forest resources, for cooking. And we know that in the world currently, Nigeria has the highest rate of deforestation in the world. So looking at engaging women in activities like tree planting, deploying energy efficient technologies like the clean cook stoves, these are ways that women, can be involved in making sure that, the social impact of this project is addressed. And I know there are a lot of other laudable projects that can be implemented to engage women and put them, at the front lines of also mitigating whether the impact of this project, the impact of climate change, and, other aspects
in the long run,
how this affects.
Olanike, many thanks to you. Thank you so much for coming in. And also to you, Desmond, we appreciate you for doing this with us, and also to Mark as well.
Thank you very much,
thanks.
Mark. Thank you.
We look to see what will happen in the coming months, especially when it comes to the other states, for example, Ondo, Ogun, Delta, Akwa Ibom,
all the way up until
Cross River State.
Well, like Desmond noted, I'm actually quite excited about it. But at the same time, because of all the situations that are happening across the coastline with the businesses and tourism, which I'm very, very interested in it being affected. I wish, like Desmond had said, that this is actually an actual coastal road instead of going back inland and affecting communities. And this is only just the start. Like we've noted, this is going to go all the way up until Calabar. And imagine the amount of...
deforestation?
Not just deforestation, the jobs, the people, the lives that are being affected now, and the multiple lives that will be affected eventually. I just wish and hope that there is some kind of way that the government and the people can come together to work it out like they did in the Netherlands, I'm thinking. And hopefully we can sort this out and reap the benefits while still keeping our jobs.
And also to put into mind that we have torrential rains as well. The Meteorological Association, they put out their latest numbers and saying that, torrential rains are going to be heavy this year as well. And we grappled with flooding. And some of the states that are on the coastal road also tackled with it as well. So this is our call to all of the agencies to get ready for what's to come.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Now, do stay tuned, because after now, we have a very interesting one coming up, and this is going to be the strips. So if you're still with us, we get to take a look at that together. Stay tuned. Well, thank you for staying with us into the end of the second hour here, but we've got plenty to look at this morning. The best editorial cartoons from over the week in this segment we call the strips. So first off, let's start. Let's see what we have first. I want to talk about this guy here. His name is Mustafa Abdulama. He draws for the Daily Trust. This was a picture he put up on his own social media account. I'm not sure this made it into the papers, but it was to congratulate workers for Workers' Day. However, it's a very, very funny picture, this. I don't know if Judith can see this, but you can see Nigeria there. Happy Workers' Day. But on the other side, it's not really happy for us, is it? As food crisis, prices, school fees, rents. Tell me about school fees. Transportation fare and tariff for electricity are all raising. But this is not the main one. Now, if we move on to the next picture, which is his own artwork for the Daily Trust again, this is the one that really got me. Right after Workers' Day. Can you see this, Judith?
Guys, can you help me make it wider so I can see it. Can you put it on the main?
I'll
There we
explain it to
go.
you.
There we are. So this is it. This is it. Can I take it? Should I read it?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Commuters face skyrocketing bus fares as fuel crisis deepens. And then you can see a young man who is definitely, downtrodden, saying, from Workers' Day to, hey!
Walker, you get it. You get the song.
He's a Skywalker, it's Luke Walker.
From Workers' Day to Walkers' Day, and the hiss. It's a very grim picture.
Do you want me to enact the hiss?
No, you don't need to. This is Nigeria. Remember that song? This is Nigeria currently.
Yeah.
The Workers' Day celebration had plenty of speeches that went on to talk about how the government or how the unions are actually looking out for workers. However, after that, then what? When will we start to see the benefits of all these conversations? We're not looking forward to another strike. Like I said, I'm not an advocate for strikes. What other means can we use to help bring together governments or unions, and also for the benefit of the people? But this picture gets my star for the day, actually, and I love this guy. I started following him over the week. Mustafa Abalama, he draws for the Daily Trust. Let's see what else we have. We have a couple other papers from through the week, the best ones that made it. That's the Guardian newspaper. Of course, we know who that is.
Looks familiar. Who's that?
Oh, you know who it is. That's a representation of the president, actually. But look at the bubbles. My country's investment environment operates on a principle of willing buyers and willing sellers. However, the counterpart here on the other side, yeah, I know. It also has willing bandits, willing crooks, and willing everything else.
Hi.
Is that not true, or is it true? Where do we stand when it comes to drawing in investments and attracting them from other countries? Are they willing to come to Nigeria because of all what they hear when it comes to banditry and the rest? Once again, I'm still looking for one of these pictures or strips that are going to be a very positive and enjoyable one. But all through the week, the theme is always that of suffering or discouragement or disappointment. Let's move on now and see what we have inside of other papers. We have two foreign papers, but we'll take them last. Now, this was a good one from Business Day. Yes, indeed.
What is
we
that?
get infusion when it comes to increase of minimum wage, which has just been increased by what, 35 or 25%? Yes, but can we handle the bills with everything that's happening? I had to buy fuel at 800 naira per liter yesterday, and well, I can afford it. What about the people who cannot? Somebody was talking the other day about what size you can buy of fufu out in the market right now. I don't know these things because the madam actually goes out and buys them. But she says that you will only get a quarter of the amount of fufu you would normally get for the same price currently. So if you can afford it, think about the other man who can't. And those in governance, this is food for thought for you guys as well. Is it really helping, these increments? Are they falling at a good time? Or should we just forget the increments and maybe adjust Nigeria to this position where we can just simply enjoy it? Yes,
I have
Judith?
to say, the essay said that our our purchasing power has increased. Don't do that.
So, is he saying that I should reduce my standard of living?
Yeah, it's looking like you're very expensive.
Well, Judith, I mean, but the point is to enjoy life at the end of the day. That's how you know that you have a government that is working. If I don't have to strive and suffer for my own electricity, my own water, my own this and that. If all of that was in place, trust me, I mean, I'll be good. Tell you what, one last one before we move in for sports, because we've got sports coming up. Very last picture now. This one is from the Vanguard newspaper for Friday. The man said, may God wipe crimes away from our society. Your amen was the loudest. Do you realize that you're the wife of a lawyer? Lawyers in the house, maybe you're needed here just in case. But we don't have too much time, Judith, but that's as much as we could take. I was looking forward to taking the Ugandan and Tanzanian papers, the strips from that one. But don't you worry, if you find any of these strips very interesting and you've seen any of them from through the week, you might want to alert us to them. Maybe we'll have it featured here on the strips for the weekend Saturday edition. And you have our social media handles. You can always write us in or direct our attention to any of them. Well, Judith, that's all we can do.
And that's what we can do right here on this week's edition of Strips. But stick around, because coming up right after this is sports. And afterwards, it's going to be time for the news at the top of the hour. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
And in sports, the 2024 IFBB West African Championships held in Accra, Ghana, ended on a high note for Nigeria as James Chima Sunday claimed the overall title in men's bodybuilding, earning him the prestigious IFBB Elite Pro card and marking his transition to a professional athlete. Now, at the age of 22, James has brought immense pride and joy to Nigeria, showcasing the capability and resilience of a homegrown talent on the international stage. Now, born and raised in Nkanu, Enugu State, James has not only stood out for his impressive physical statistics, standing 176 centimeters tall and weighing 95 kg, but also for his mental fortitude and dedication to the sports. His success at the 2024 IFBB West African Championships is not just a personal triumph, but a moment of national pride, further solidifying Nigeria's standing in the international bodybuilding community as he prepares for future competitions. Now from there, let's head straight to the world of football as the Golden Eaglets are again literally racing against time to present a team for a successful defense of the WAFU B Under-17 Championship after more than half of the first team failed the mandatory MRI age test. Now this comes as Nigeria have only until Monday to submit a final squad list to the organizers. Coach Manu Garba's Manu Garba was reappointed late to his former post, and he is now under even more pressure to line up a team who will qualify for the Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations tournament from the WAFU B qualifying series in Ghana from the 15th of May. Now, the five-time world champions are drawn in Group B alongside Burkina Faso, Togo, and Niger Republic. Now, 2 years ago, Nduka Ogbade led the country to win the sub-regional tournament only to fail to qualify for the Under-17 World Cup. Moving on from there straight to the Bundesliga, as Super Eagles forward Victor Boniface has been included in the Bundesliga team of the season. Now, Boniface was among 6 Bayer Leverkusen players who made the selection. The 23-year-old was named in attack alongside Bayern Munich's Harry Kane and Serhou Guirassy of VfB Stuttgart. It is a remarkable achievement for the striker, who was out of action for 3 months due to an abductor injury. Now, the former Bordeaux Glint star has so far registered 11 goals and 9 assists in 20 Bundesliga games this season. His Leverkusen teammates who also made the shortlist are Jeremy Frimpong, Jonathan Tah, Alejandro Grimaldo, Granit Xhaka, and Florian Wirtz. We say big congratulations to Victor Boniface right there for being named in the German Bundesliga team of the season. And so talking about accolades, now let's go straight to England and tell you that Arsenal goalkeeper David Raya has won the Premier League's Golden Glove Award for Luton after Luton scored against Everton's Jordan Pickford on Friday. Now Raya has kept 14 clean sheets in 29 league appearances, and that was this season, having joined the Gunners on loan from Brentford in the summer. Now before Everton's match on Friday, Pickford was the only goalkeeper that could have overtaken Raya in the Golden Glove standings, but then Pickford had his hopes dashed from winning that individual accolade outrightly, where it was ended when Elijah Adebayo equalized for Luton after 31 minutes in his side's 1-1 draw on Friday. The Everton and England stopper still trails Raya by 2 clean sheets with 2 fixtures remaining, and it can at best only match the Spaniards' record. We're talking about the Premier League and that game between Luton and Everton. Luton Town missed the chance to move out of the relegation zone in the Premier League as they were held to a 1-1 draw before shooting low past Jordan Pickford. And the draw leaves Rob Edwards' side in the bottom 3, level on points with Nottingham Forest, but haven't played a game more. So they stand the risk of being relegated from this season's English Premier League. The likes of Luton Town, Burnley, and already relegated Sheffield United. So it's a big one to play for later today in the Premier League, because when it comes to the top of the table clash, Arsenal has an early kickoff against Bournemouth. And of course, for Wolves, they will hope to end the dreams of Manchester City. Still talking about the Premier League, because Wolverhampton Wanderers will get to play against Man City in the English Premier League right there at the Etihad Stadium. And of course, that draws a wrap on Sport Updates on Breakfast Extra. I am Udoka Njoku saying thank you for watching, and good morning, Judith, and of course, Mazino.
A very good morning to you,
Good morning, Udoka.
And many thanks for coming on. We appreciate you. And now I think we have Dakbo on standby for the news. Dakbo, are you there?
I'm actually here, Judith.
Dakbo, we're struggling to hear you. We cannot hear you there. I will try to see if we can fix your audio. But please, in the meantime, bring us the news.
All right. Of course, I'll be with the news shortly. Let's go on a quick break. Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. Let's start off with this. The Nigerian government has, of course, announced the addition of 625 megawatt of power to the national grid, increasing the grid's wheeling capacity of 4,800 to 4,800 megawatts. Now, this was disclosed by the Special Advisor, Strategic Communications to the Minister of Power, Bolaji Tunji, in Abuja. Bolaji quoted the Minister of Power, Atibi Delabo, saying that this at the inauguration of the 63 megavolt ampere with a 132/33 kilovolt mobile station at Aja, Lagos, and at the inauguration of the 60 megavolt ampere of 132 to 33 volt power transmission in Benin Kebbi State. Let's also tell you that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will commission 3 critical gas infrastructure projects being undertaken by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and partner. This was disclosed in a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajurin Ganane. He said the projects support government's effort to grow value from the nation's gas assets while eliminating gas flaring. The projects lined up for commissioning include the AHL Gas Processing Plant 2. The Court of Appeal has set aside the Lokoja High Court order against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and its chairman, Ola Olukoyede, in a contempt case filed by the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. The Court of Appeal, presided over by Justice Joseph Oke Oyewole, granted the EFCC's motion for a stay of execution and proceedings in the contempt case, pending before the Kogi State High Court. The court held that the motion ex parte had merit and adjourned the hearing of the motion on notice to May 20th, 2024. In the meantime, the Anti-Graft Commission has assured the public that it will continue with the alleged 70 billion corruption case against the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, during his tenure as the governor of Zamfara State from 2019 to 2023. Acting Director of Public Affairs of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Worsens said this while addressing protesters under the aegis of the APC Akida Forum who were at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja on Friday to demand the reopening of the pending case. And of course, that's a wrap on the news at this time. Back to you in the studio, Judith and Mazino.
Dakwa, thank you so much for coming on. Well, thank you for bringing the news, by the way.
Thank you. Are
you and Mazino wearing the same color suit? No,
I don't think so.
Safe.
But yeah, I just even wanted to chip in. I mean, your interview with the PR of IPMAN this morning, shed some light into what exactly is going on with the petrol scarcity in the country. But it also brings the question, or brings to the fore the issue of subsidy. I mean, it was talking about payment, right?
Yes.
I remember last week too, when I had a conversation with him, on my program. He talked about subsidy being removed, but being replaced with something he called quasi-subsidy. And well, so, the big question is, who's deceiving who?
I think
who do we hold accountable in all of this? The federal government saying its subsidy regime is over, or is it IPMAN saying something else? I mean,
you know what I realized?
Where exactly does this place Nigerians?
What I realized is that along with the monies that were being paid marketers, there were also some other payments that were being made, that when the subsidy was removed, those payments kind of like stopped. Now, if you consider these payments, if there are still some of them going on, you've been hearing talks about the subsidy still ongoing. Perhaps those are the references that they're making. These monies that are still being owed, like what's it called, bridge claim, for instance. That's a very interesting one that most people don't know about. Most people don't know that they have to actually claim back these monies, and that since September last year they had stopped giving it to them.
I will say something, Dakpo. The term quasi-subsidy is what I'm using for my next script. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dakpo.
Dakpo, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Now it's time for us to move to our creative corner. In our creative corner this morning, Mazino was welcomed into the world of a visionary and celebrated movie director. And she is one of a kind behind the lenses, renowned for her unparalleled storytelling prowess and cinematic brilliance. She has amassed a plethora of accolades, especially for her recent work, Atibi. Inside Creative Corner this morning, meet the world-renowned Emma Edochie. Take a look.
First off, let's welcome you to our Creative Corner, Emma Edochie. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for actually agreeing to be on our
Thank
show.
you for having me.
Now, let's get started. Let's get over and done with the fact that you're actually camera shy. How does this feel for you?
I'm used to being behind the camera. It's like putting me on the spot. I'm wondering what is happening, and I want to go and take the camera and take the light and take the reins. But
yeah, we already saw that you did that.
Yes,
pretty much.
Yes.
All right, good. So first off, let's start by talking about your journey through or up until this point where you are as a movie director, one of the most notable Nigerian movie directors. Note that I didn't say female directors; I said Nigerian overall. That journey started from you not actually even being a student of the arts.
Nope.
Tell us how it started.
I studied computer science at Olabisi Onabanjo University in Ogun State. And then while in school, I used to see these music videos, then Tolo Tolo by Sonny Neji, P-Square, Senorita pop up. And there was this new music scene coming up, and I just got so interested in music videos. And it started, I think, in 2006. I started 2006. So then it was time for my industrial attachment. I lied to my parents that I was going to a software company, and I went into a small music video production company, and that was where I started. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I remember, your mother wasn't very pleased when she found out.
No, she wasn't very pleased when she found out. She was really upset. She said no child of her will study computer science and become a cameraman, in quotes. But she saw a publication of me on the internet, and she was quite impressed, and then she just let me go on after that.
Yeah. Let's talk about your family. Family, 7 kids.
Yep.
1 brother.
Yes.
6 of you. Everybody in the sciences.
Yes.
You're the only person who's strayed.
Yes.
In quotes.
Yes.
But right now, that seems to be a good thing now, isn't it?
Yes, it is a good thing. I think the industry has grown so well right now that parents are beginning to be proud of their children going into the arts. For me, I remember my mother cried. She called my brother, and they were really screaming at me, like, look at Two-Face. That was back in the early 2000s. Like, look at Two-Face. Where is he now? Do you want to ruin your life? But yes, I'm the only one that's straight and doing very well right now.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that, especially when we put it in tandem with what you do now. How have you been able to draw from the resources of you growing up, one amongst many kids in a Nigerian setting where parents want their kids to be specifically maybe doctors or lawyers? How do you draw from that experience growing up as in that modest setting to putting all of that experience inside of your movie making or storytelling?
I think for me, I grew up in a very shielded family. So my mother's greatest fear was for one of her daughters to get pregnant, one of the Edochie girls to get pregnant. So one of my mother's greatest fear, and I know for most African mothers back then, was for what her daughter getting pregnant. So I grew up in a very shielded home. So being in that shielded home got me curious about life and curious about people. I remember I was so shielded that even in university, my mom used to come to school to check my books, see my lecturers, and all of that. But when I got out, I was so curious about people. I was so curious about life, and from these questions, and I think all my films address these questions that who is this person? What makes him tick? What makes her tick? And that is what influences me, not necessarily my upbringing per se. Is the curiosity of being shielded for a very long time. I'm coming into life, I've been bombarded with, so many things, going for my first party and like, whoa! And, me trying to, I think my film is me trying to speak I grew up not being able to say a lot. And when I say not being able to say a lot, my mom was really particularly afraid of me because I was such a friendly child. So I remember when she would send me on errands, she'd be like, if you go on errands, if you like talk to all the goats, the sheep, and don't come back early. So with that, I sort of hid myself inside. And my films are me talking to people. It's the way that I talk to people. It's the way that I share my emotions. It's the way that I share what I'm going through. My films are very, very personal. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're that reverse kid now?
I am actually. I am. You should see me with my staff. Like I'm literally jumping on the table with everybody. So I think with that curiosity, it has helped me really love people, really get interested with people. And if you want to be a good director, you have to love people. You have to want to know them. And I think that has helped me grow as a director, really. Yeah.
So you can't get this far without challenges. How have you overcome some of these challenges that Nigeria will always present to you?
Where do I start?
Yeah, at the beginning would be good.
So there's been a lot. There's been a lot of challenges being in the film industry in Nigeria. There's hardly any support. It's beginning to come up by the government, but there's not a lot of support. And you find out that when you look at the average American, they have like 100 or 200, maybe 150 years of filmmaking for reference. I, as an African, I don't have that reference. Like if a young person an American wants to make a movie, he can reference a Martin Scorsese, or he can reference something made in the 1900 something, the early days of film. But for me as an African, where do I get the reference from? Even the great filmmakers like Usman Sembene, I don't have access to his films. I can't find them. So what are the challenges? The challenges are looking for, there's a line of growth that has been cut off, especially in Africa. Where do I find my foot? It's like shaking. What does an African movie sound like? What can I draw from to say this is the sound or the look or the feel of an African film? And that's one of it. The other one is funding. You have this dream, you want to make a movie, it's very expensive. How do you get the money to make this movie? And one of the things that has helped me is over the years, I have become proficient in almost all aspects of filmmaking. I'm a cinematographer. I studied cinematography. I can edit. So this has helped me cut down costs. So if I want to make a movie with 100,000 naira, I can make a movie and I can experiment. And this is how I've grown in the industry and put work out there, great work out there. And people have found me, and investment and things have been growing. It's a gradual process. Really.
Great. So this is the fun part of this interview here. Now, we've heard of OTT. We can't talk about Skinny Girl in Transit or Casala without talking about the one that started everything. Let's talk about Run. I know this was film school.
Yes.
I know that it perhaps maybe doesn't find its way into any of your CVs or anything, but I saw Run, and not a bad effort. Tell me about the experience of being in film school, working with people who aren't exactly your culture, and also trying to tell the stories from your culture, the African storytelling. How did it fit into film school?
Film school was an experience for every young filmmaker. It was a dream come true.
Where was it again?
I went to the Motion Picture Institute of Michigan in Michigan in the U.S. And it was a dream come true for me. I had spent the early years of my career working with Clarence Peters, and you will see Clarence will just say, "We're shooting here," and everything he will touch will be beautiful. So for me, I could learn that if you put this light there, if you put that light there, you get this effect. But I didn't know the foundation. So that was why I really went to film school to get my foundations right. And it was quite an experience working with people from all around the world, because you get to share ideas, you get to bring your unique perspective. It taught me teamwork. It taught me drawing from people's experiences to tell stories. There, you can't just say, "Oh yeah, do this because I say you do this and I'm the director." You have to have a conversation with your crew and have that. And it gave me a massive discipline to know the structure of filmmaking, to know what works, And that was what it did for me. Film school was a huge opportunity to be able to bring together people's culture and make stories, tell stories, not just from my unique Nigerian voice. What I say to people is that, look, we all have, say for example, we all know love. The substance of an African, the person falling in love in Africa is different from the substance of the person falling in love with you in Europe. But there's this foundation that once you show love to somebody in India who doesn't speak English, he knows that this is the substance of love and he can identify with that. For me, filmmaking made me, going to film school abroad made me understand the substance and how to translate it to a global audience. So when I make movies, I take my African experience and I put it in a way that a global audience can understand, but still not watering down the story. And it was a great experience for me. Yeah.
So do you think all audience is one audience? Do you think every movie you can actually show to every single kind of audience and they will get the essence? Does that tell about the skill of the director?
I think that, first things first, I think that directors are allowed to tell whatever kind of stories they want to tell. If you want to make slapstick comedy, go ahead and make a slapstick comedy. But I agree with you that the audience is one, because when people go to watch movies, they want to see their lives reflected. They want to disconnect. And every character is a substance of somebody you once knew, or a struggle you once, or we can empathize with this character's struggle. We can empathize with his need to save his daughter. And I think that I agree with you that every audience is one. Yeah. There's a substance of fear, there's a substance of love, there's a substance of pain, there's a substance of betrayal, and we all go to the core emotions, and we all go to the movies to want to experience relive these experiences or learn something from that. So I think the audience is one, and that's why you see a Korean movie with nobody speaking English and you see a massive Nigerian audience, because we can all relate with that substance, and that's a worldwide theme that I try to achieve in my film.
So was that what you were trying to do in Kasala? I bring Kasala up because it's a very unique movie.
Yes.
First off, in Kasala, it wasn't just about the story itself, it was also about the different characters, and that you had to establish every single character in a way that doesn't, you know, like make the audience think, oh, that's a bit too much. Now let's get to back to the story. How did you achieve that in a certain, I don't know why the name Guy Ritchie-esque, you know, fashion comes to mind. Was that intentional for you? And is that a theme throughout your entire movie making process?
I love Guy Ritchie.
I do too.
I'm a humongous fan of Guy Ritchie. Kasala was a mistake. I don't want to call it a mistake. I stumbled into Kasala. I think that I have a documentary background, so when I'm not making movies, when I wasn't making movies back then, even sometimes now, I make documentaries. And I remember that I was making a documentary for Bloomberg, and I went into Makoko. I don't know if you've ever been to Makoko. I had nightmares. When we spoke to interview the village chief, he said, this is my mansion. They bomb me for a year, I go die for a year. And I was like, why is there no film about Nigerians, even in the lower middle class, showing... I didn't grow up in a wealthy home. I grew up in Ojo, but I had one of the best childhood. Like, I remember we used to pick milk cans. We used to go to the dump yard to pick milk cans.
What part of Ojo?
Agric.
Agric? Oh,
yes,
wow.
we grew up,
I grew up in Festac.
Really? Yeah. I went to school in Festac all my life. If there was University of Festac, I would have gone there. And you know, a lot of Delta people moved to that area.
Yes.
So I grew up in Ojo. We used to play with milk cans. We'll go to the dump yard to find milk cans, tangolo, and we would throw. I played with tires, and I had, till today, nobody can convince me that me running on the streets of Ojo in my barefoot was not the best childhood ever, right? And I wanted to show this joy, this pride, you know, from this low-income place. And I said, Kasala is a love story to Lagos. The 4 boys are from 4 different parts of the country. And how can I show the spirit of tenacity? Even though they go through a lot trying to raise money, we see the social problem. But you can still empathize. You can still see the doggedness. You can still see the friendship. And that was why I made Kasala, because I wanted to. And when I made it, how do you tell someone that, oh, please invest in my movie? My movie is about 4 boys. One of them bashed his uncle's car, and they're looking for 20,000 naira to fix the car. And nobody wanted to give me money. So I went to my sister and I threatened that I was going to kidnap her baby, and like 250K came. You know, that's how I literally raised the money, and I raised 4 million naira, and I made it, produced, directed, shot and edited it. I didn't know what was going to happen to it. I was like, if it gets on African Magic, my dream, I'm made as a filmmaker. So I made this film, and next thing somebody says, well, why don't you put it in a film festival? And I was like, do people like me put films in film festivals? Like you think of Martin Scorsese on the red carpet with Brad Pitt, you know, with their beautiful clothes. And I just put it in this festival, and they invited me to Paris to come. And from there, the movie started traveling, and it went to 30 international film festivals and won 9 awards. And I was like, wow.
All me.
No famous face. It was 4 boys, the streets of Lagos, and I was like, it just became a validation that, you know, my voice as a filmmaker is valid, and I'm allowed to make the films that I'm passionate about. And there's a world outside Nigeria. There's a massive world out there.
This is why we had to have you on Creative Corner, because there's so much. I mean, I don't think that the little time that we have is enough, but thank you very much, Emma,
thank you for having me.
For welcoming us and also being on this segment. You are indeed a legend when it comes to African movies and storytelling, and I want to see more of your stories.
Thank you.
We want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
On Tuesday, Kenya's President William Ruto deployed the military to evacuate everyone living in flood-prone areas after 171 people were killed since March as torrential rains pound throughout the East African country, a figure which by Friday had risen to 188.
Now, seasonal rains amplified by the El Niño weather pattern have devastated Kenya, with floodwaters engulfing villages and threatening to unleash even more damage in the weeks to come. Now, as a result of this, dozens of tourists were stranded in Kenya's world-famous Masai Mara National Reserve after heavy rains caused the river to overflow, flooding lodges and camps. Local authorities estimate that nearly 100 tourists were affected. Now, torrential downpours linked to the El Niño weather pattern have battered much of East Africa, damaging infrastructure across Kenya. The flooding cut off roads and bridges, making it difficult to reach those stranded in reserves. And Kenyan Red Cross airlifted over half of the 61 people that were rescued from the national parks. Tourism Minister Alfred Mutua warned tourist facilities near rivers to prepare for potential evacuations as the situation unfolds.
And joining us now to talk about the floods is Chris Otieno. He is the CEO and lead consultant, State East Africa Ltd. Well, Chris, many thanks for coming on. And I understand that our audio is a bit muted. Can you help us to unmute so we can speak to you?
I'm live.
There you are. Let's get started. What immediate measures were taken to ensure the safety and well-being of those affected by the floods, particularly in the flood-prone areas that we've seen so far?
We've seen quite a number of government interventions. One of the most frontal interventions.
Chris, we seem to have lost you there. If you're just tuning in, we were speaking to Chris Otieno all the way from Kenya as we're talking about the flood-prone areas and all the victims have been affected by flood. And my last question to him was to ask about the measures that have been taken to ensure the safety and the well-being of those affected by the floods. And situations like this, basically we've been seeing this happening in Kenya and now Tanzania as well. Another, correct me, I wouldn't want to quote the country, East African countries, and now looking forward to bracing themselves against Cyclone Hadia, all thanks to the El Nino patterns that we've seen, the weather patterns. And more is to come from what the patterns are. As you know, it's really heart-wrenching to see these numbers.
It is indeed 188. That's a lot of people. But I also wanted to go back and talk about the fact that now we had a situation that
needed urgent resolution, and that's the case of the tourists who were trapped at the Masai Mara Reserve. I found that very interesting because, as you know, I'm a very touristy person. I love travel and everything. Now, that situation caught my attention because of the very interesting first response of the president himself, William Ruto. He didn't just say, okay, this is happening. I asked the question on breakfast on Wednesday. I asked Olive and Osarage, would it be the same if I traveled to Yankari, got cut off because of this weather situation? Would I get a response from the president saying, let's go help the tourists at Yankari?
All of the lives in matter.
William Ruto actually came in first person response and said, oh, we have to get these guys out. To that effect, people were airlifted. It gives you an idea of how much attention is given to tourism in Kenya. And this is fun because we talked about tourism earlier on the show today where we're talking about the Lagos-Calabar Highway. If these trapped 61 people inside of the Masai Mara National Park could take the attention of the president, and here in Nigeria it's the opposite, where we're having our tourist centers and people who actually work there being demolished and scattered and not much being thought about or given to the impact tourism has on the Nigerian economy. I just find that very worrying.
And honestly, I mean, for my intro, what I said, I was saying that one of the sectors who have not been able to get right up until now has been our tourism sector. It is still long been, I wouldn't say abandoned, but there's so much development that needs to be done, and it's still not yet been done. I mean, there are people, I mean, for Kenya, for example, there are people who go out, Kenyans, who look forward to traveling to go to the safaris, to go see that
inside
the country. Exactly. And here it's not the same, you know. We don't have people who are going to these reserves and these conservations that do exist. And they also grapple with funding issues. There's a lot going on. Let's never go too far. We can't, with the recent sand filling of the beaches, I don't know.
You can't see the beach anymore.
You can't see the beach
There's no more beach.
There used to be a time you could drive through Ahmadu Bello Way VI and you could just look over to the side and you see, you know, the beach. But now it's not the same. Chris, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. My sincerest apologies. One of the problems we're facing is power disappearance. Power disappears any time because of what is happening here.
Okay,
sincerest apologies.
Thank you so much. But again, let's quickly go back. Immediate measures were taken to ensure the safety and the well-being of those affected by the floods, particularly in the flood-prone areas. What were those measures? And walk us through some of these measures.
We have seen part of our Ministry of Works going out to do a lot of drainage repairs, a lot of new sinking of drainages. We're seeing a lot of notification going out to the common public on exactly what is required of them to be done. For example, voluntary evacuation. We're also seeing forced evacuation by the military and the Red Cross. We're seeing all forms of government just going out there to ensure that every life of Kenyan living within the riparian lands or where water or land masses have been submerged by water being evacuated and being taken to other places, just for safety. So we have a lot of interventions going on there. But at the same time, we're also seeing a lot of lives particularly being lost, lives of Kenyans being lost because of the uncertainty that is involved in this problem that we are facing nationally as of now.
Right. I mean, Kenya is known for its tourism sites, right? We're talking about especially the safari. And with the recent incident of tourists being stranded in the Masai Mara National Reserve and the warning given to other tourist reserves to prepare for more floods, what improvements can be made to enhance the safety of tourist facilities, especially the tourist facilities in flood-prone areas?
There's a lot that needs to be done. First and foremost is to be able to map out all the ecosystems that can easily be destroyed by this water, and make sure that constructions are done to lead that water away, and also to ensure that we don't have constructions along these waterways, because where we are from is that a lot of construction has been done on the waterways. And when you get into this time of the year, or this cycling that we face as a nation every 10 years, we find that this continually occurs. So there needs to be a proper strategy on how we approach waterways, where we construct our buildings, how we approach our constructions. And all this cycle of interventions that are more preventative than what would require us to react as we are reacting now when we are faced with these kinds of catastrophes.
Let's talk synergy and collaboration. Chris, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. In situations like this, you know, one must think about society and the community, and better yet, collaboration, right, to come together as a community. International bodies is one, but also locally. So do you think that international community should consider, supporting Kenya at this time and other East African countries? Because we understand that Cyclone Haidia is on the horizon and it's going to make landfall soon.
Yes, there's a necessity that we need to create a lot of collaboration, first internally, between ministries of the government, between departments of the government, agency of the government, and the various humanitarian actors and other stakeholders that will take part in saving lives and in preventing this kind of natural disasters from going to that extent where we're seeing a lot of losses in life. We are now counting about 188, and the number still seems to be counted. Like you said, we're also in the lookout for Hidayah, which is going to come from Tanzania down our coast. We know this coast is very lowland in Kenya. So just right like you said, there needs to be international cooperation, local cooperation, and institutional cooperation to ensure that we are facing these problems as partners, as humanitarian actors, as governments, as international community, and all from all those fronts. Yes, we need to act in partnership to make sure that we are preventing and are acting right to ward off the effects that could come from this, and also prepare ourselves in advance, make sure that we have that readiness when it comes to us fending off the effects that could arise from the effects of natural disasters.
Okay, so Chris, final question here. How can the local communities and authorities actually work together to improve early warning systems and response mechanism for the natural disasters like the floods that has been experienced currently? Were there any early warning systems that were adhered to or not adhered to?
There are quite a number of early warning systems that were not adhered to. A number of them were adhered to. But then if you look at how we approach this, we have a very well-established meteorological department. The meteorology department has its own responsibility to them by the national government, which is the responsibility to warn the entire nation of the patterns of weather that are going to face us. Now, they pass their warning quite well in advance. And then we see local governments, for example, the government of Nairobi, the local government of the city of Nairobi, a number of measures were taken. But what we are saying is that these measures were not timely, they were not effective, some of them are not humane enough, but we are saying that yes, if we collaborate and ensure that we have the right enforcement mechanisms.
Right. Chris, many thanks for coming.
Force response, good enough.
Right.
Chris, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this. Our eyes are on East Africa at the moment, and we hope to see that the rains will subside and less lives will be lost to this menace. But many thanks.
Coming up, we take a look at the identity crisis that has hit Nigerian music scene with some very interesting guests. Stay tuned.
And a surprising twist within Nigeria's music industry, there's a growing identity crisis surrounding the Afrobeat genre. Prominent artists like Burna Boy and Wizkid, despite being associated with the Afrobeats movement, are now more vocal about their music not fitting the traditional Afrobeats label. Now, this shift has sparked a debate regarding the evolution and definition of Nigerian music, particularly concerning its cultural roots and global identity.
Now, Afrobeats, an offshoot of Afrobeat genre pioneered by the legendary Fela Kuti, has significantly impacted Nigeria's cultural landscape and gained immense popularity worldwide. However, the distinction between Afrobeat and Afrobeats has become blurred over time, with the latter incorporating more contemporary influences such as hip-hop, R&B, and also dancehall. Now, this departure from Afrobeat's original sound and message has led to concerns about the dilution of Nigeria's musical heritage and also its cultural identity.
This ongoing identity crisis has broader implications for Nigeria's music industry and its global reputation. While Afrobeats has undeniably propelled Nigerian music to international acclaim, the erosion of its ties to Afrobeat risks disconnecting it from its historical and cultural significance. And as artists continue to redefine and evolve Nigeria's musical landscape, it is crucial to maintain a balance between innovation and honoring the legacy of genres like Afrobeat, which has played a pivotal role in shaping Nigeria's rich musical heritage.
Now, this is the exciting part. Joining us today to discuss the identity crisis are two legends themselves in the Nigerian music scene. We're talking about none other than Michael Stevens. You know him as Rogedi Baba, rapper, actor, and also philanthropist. That's a new one. And of course, Bros is also in the studio. Ife Omoregbe, creative entrepreneur. And if you know him from the start, he was he used to assassinate OAPs. Lurking in bushes until they appear and then he pounces on them. You are welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you guys
Welcome,
here.
guys. It's good to have you join us here. We
Thank you very much.
Taking out your time this morning to be with us in the studio.
Yeah, an absolute
I want to
pleasure.
start. Let me ask both of you, anybody go first. How would you define the evolving music landscape currently? This Afrobeat blurring or Afrobeats blurring into Afrobeat and then the dissociation by artists from it. Let's start with Roger.
Ladies first.
Nah.
What?
Yeah, he came swinging.
Okay. Well, did you say blurring from what?
From Afrobeats, or from Afrobeat into Afrobeats?
Well, you see, from day one, when they started the whole trying to target Afrobeats, I was never down for it. I was never for it, really. I would have just preferred they just left it the way it was, because if you had even said Nigerian beats or Niger beats, I'd understand. This is Nigerian music. So you're now saying Afro beats. Afro in there is obviously African, right? So now are we now also trying to give other African nations, their own music? Are we now trying to pack all of them into our own music, one genre? You understand? Of course. Okay, now, and a question I asked back then was, then what happens to reggae? What happens to Fuji? What happens to Juju and Akpala?
But those ones already are genres. You just
Yeah,
call
that's what I'm
them
saying. But
reggae.
there's still music being made by Nigerians who are Africans.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, when you think about Afrobeat in and of itself, the Afrobeat itself is a genre that was created by the legendary Fela Kuti.
That's Afrobeat.
Right.
Okay.
And then the offshoot from that became Afrobeats.
It wasn't an offshoot from that. It was just Nigerians wanting to tag something. They just wanted to name. They want to own something. A lot of people in this generation, they love tags. They love, maybe that's where hashtags come in. They just wanted to tag something. Rap was rap. Okay, do you hear them say American rap or Spanish rap?
It's just rap.
It's rap.
If you're staring in your seats.
Keep moving. Talk to me.
Okay, so I'm pretty kinetic. So I move a lot, even when
it's okay.
It's not indicative of being agitated or disagreeing with anything. But my view is slightly different. I think that first and foremost, I was uncomfortable for a long time with the Afrobeats tag for what's supposed to be contemporary African music as delivered by a generation of recording artists, from predominantly Nigeria and Ghana, and some of the neighboring countries in between. But my view is that the Afrobeats tag did not really originate from artists or Nigerian artists trying to label their music. I think it started from the UK.
Nigerians in the UK.
Yes, it started from Nigerians in the UK. It started with media personalities in the UK, and I understand where they're coming from. Even though I didn't agree initially, but I understand. If you run a radio show or run a radio station, you're doing programming, sometimes there's a need to create boxes and slots and stuff. You can't really do proper programming. You can do proper playlisting if you do not have categorization. Yes, categorization. And with the popularity of music coming out of Nigeria, out of Ghana, and a couple of places, the more prominent they became within the space in the UK, there appeared to have been a need to say, okay, let's put a label, right? I remember people like DJ Abranti and a few others were the first people to officially have like a radio show or something that had the tag Afrobeats, right, with the S.
So that's a good thing. At least we've established that Afrobeats is very separate from Afrobeats, and perhaps maybe shouldn't have been tagged. So now it's also quite a heritage for Nigeria and Africa. However, something that's our own, and people who are very proud of their artists being exports now. You're talking about Wizkid, Burna Boy, David O, they're all exports. Now these exports themselves are the ones who are now telling that no,
I don't want to be identified as Afrobeats. I want to be something else. I make music for the world. In addition to that, that's also causing rifts inside of the, no, I'm going to talk about this.
All that is great. All that is fantastic stuff as far as I'm concerned. All that is positive, because anything that sparks debate, anything that forces people to have conversations is good for the movement, is good for the ecosystem, is good for the growth. And I see all of this as just signs of growth, of the evolution, right? But fundamentally, the question is, what is Afrobeats? If we're able to agree on what Afrobeats is, that would actually help us understand a lot of all of these conversations.
Okay.
So for me personally, Afrobeats is not really a term that refers to a particularly style of music.
Okay.
It's really more of an umbrella term for a fusion of different sounds. So when you say, for example, in the 60s, you had you had the Motown era, and they had a lot of, like big hit records, right? And it was almost like a formula. There was a tag for it. They called it the sound of young America.
Yeah.
Now, it had a bit of R&B influence. It had a bit of soul influence. It had a bit of even gospel, Negro spiritual influence. It had a bit of pop influence. The different artists, right? The different artists within the Motown era, the kind of music they made it were different, but there were similarities.
If I'm going to pause you there, because
very quickly, and I want to come to you, Rugged Man, right? You're a rapper, but in the course of your music journey, you also decided to do what you call dancehall or Afrobeats. And I remember during the intro of that song, you said, you people said, I thought I couldn't just rap, I could do more. And in that point, I'm going to use your experience to ask this next question. For these artists who are disassociating themselves from this genre, is it innovation or their need to show more of what they can do?
Well, for me, I think, as you were talking now, I was going to say I wish one of them was here. So you just ask them. I want to know exactly why they are disassociating themselves with it. For me, from what you talked about, the sounds in America, when you talked about the mistake a lot of Nigerians made, they somehow, trying to tag Afrobeats, they somehow mistook Afrobeats for a genre. It's not a genre. We already have all of that. And whenever you ask me, if I tell anybody, I'll tell you, look, Afrobeats with an S, like they say, to me was just a facade that a lot of talentless Nigerians hid behind.
Okay. Okay, so I've just been told.
And sorry, let me just say, and what I did with Baraje, I said for those that say I don't have a dance track, feel this, I did a dance track.
Yeah.
I made what rappers then will call commercial music.
Good.
You understand?
I just got information that we have a very short time, but I can't let you guys go without touching on something that's presently making waves on social media. It's this Wizkid versus Davido versus Don Jazzy. Now, there's a certain level of disrespect, in quote. People would say that these new genre artists are bringing with their style of music. We saw that East Coast, West Coast. Is that a thing in here in Nigeria? And what is your take on the specific individuals, whether Wizkid or Davido, in this matter? Please, Efe.
I think these are just bands. I don't take them too seriously. It's sometimes difficult to tell when someone is saying something to stir a conversation ahead of the release of a record or something, or when it's really heartfelt. And again, Twitter, social media, there's usually very little context. I make a tweet, I tweet something in 3 or 4 lines. There's a lot of background stuff like Rugged just said. If you were to sit the talent down to say, give us context, right? We probably will better understand how deep this really runs. But for me, it's disturbing to a lot of people. I think it should be should be toned down so that things don't spill over. But at this moment, I think 80% of it is just bands. It's just buzz. It's just promo. It's just all of that stuff. I don't take them too seriously.
Yeah, but for me, it's always the fans. is always the fans. If you check each time there's been an issue between Davido and Wizkid, it's always when one of them responds to something a fan said. And the next thing, the other artist will be forced to say something. You're talking about Davido and Wizkid now. Check when Techno responded to something someone said. Kiss Daniels now came forward and said, "Oh, they're talking money. You two, you're talking. You that I helped revive your dead career." You understand? It's always the fans toning it down. Like if he said, it's for the artists. Because if the artists just come out and say, "Hey, you guys, hey, calm down, this is entertainment," and you don't take it this. See, artists can say things and do things, but how the fans react, you can never predict. Let me give you a quick example. When I dropped a hand, there was a whole lot of beef. You looked like there was a whole lot of beef. I was at an event performing and somebody tapped my shoe and he asked me, he said, look, that he knows where Idris lives, that he can go and break a bottle on his head if I want.
That's your fun.
You understand? I just said, nah.
I mean, look,
I just said, no, don't do that, don't do that. But imagine if I said, go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't know the guy's mental,
You'd have started a cult.
Yeah.
Well, I wish we had enough time to actually talk about the fan behavior, really, because then if you want to take that, we can widen that even to the new craze, which is the reality television camp, and that's a lot, right? And also we can now go into substance abuse, so much more that is going on with our
this new generation.
It's so much that needs to be talked about.
We're out of time. Unfortunately, we're almost at the top of the hour.
We're out of time.
When it comes to entertainment, you guys, you need like an hour.
I agree with you.
I agree with you.
I agree with
but I want to say thank you, okay, to you gentlemen for taking out the time out of your very busy schedule to be here. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to say it was a pleasure, but I actually wish we had enough time to
say more.
To answer, to actually deal with the issues,
There's a lot.
We hope we'll get a chance.
It's going to be another
later.
time. I promise you. That's a promise from us here on Breakfast Extra. My name is Judith Atibi, by the way.
My name is Mazino. Do stay tuned.